Right.
And so it has to start a couple of minutes. It's not. Come on, man, hurry up, dude.
Huh, mine's
All
already
right,
going.
so all right, mine's already just started getting going. Remember, my computer often acts pretty slow at times. There,
Right.
I know. The thing is, I keep cleaning the damn thing out no matter what. It's just I don't know. Probably I don't know if it's the OBS that's doing this to the computer or what it was, or I need a bigger computer, whichever or what, or but it doesn't really matter. I guess it comes along with the territory, I believe.
Yeah.
All right, so how's everybody doing on this Tuesday afternoon? It's Arknolia and the Doctor back again after a couple days off. I guess you could say call it that. This is episode 13 of our music memories and our part two of our discussion on the Rolling Stones.
Right.
And I guess we continue, and we started it
Well,
off
we'll
with the
start with
beginning.
Goat's Head Soup.
Yeah, that album, because that album there had a lot of controversy over the name, the picture that came inside of the record sleeve, and one of the songs titled Dancing with Mr. D had gained a lot of controversy there.
Well, and Star Star.
And Star Star, which I remember hear about that, and we know the original story about that, what it was originally supposed to be called. I believe that Joan Jett and the Blackhearts did a cover of that song, but apparently what it was, that caused a lot of controversy. I guess around a couple members of her record label decided, they couldn't do anything. They couldn't really release it as it was. See, that version is, well, let's put it this way. It had a certain well-known word in it that we all know like the back of our hand. That's often used a lot in this community here.
Right.
Yeah.
But it did have two very notable songs on there.
Mm-hmm.
Angie, which was one of their biggest ballads,
Mm-hmm.
and Do 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 Heartbreaker.
Yeah, exactly. Bob, which details a woman ODing on drugs and somebody else being mistaken for a crook or someone and being shot dead.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of for them, an interesting album.
Yeah, and plus, as I mentioned, one of the gatefold, not necessarily the gatefold, but it was a photograph inside of the album there, and it featured a goat's head inside of a witch's cauldron boiling away.
Right.
And I guess a lot of Christian fundamentalists, a lot of parents were screaming about that, saying that the Stones are Satanists, and along with the song "Dancing with Mr. D," which I guess which I understand is about someone with Let me look it up here again. Son of a name goat. Dancing with Mr. D. Mm-hmm. Okay, the official promo here that's on YouTube right now. I guess the lyrics are very more kind of like a kind of basically it's something like this. I was dancing with Mr. D. I guess it's supposed to be the devil, for what I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, down at the graveyard where we have our trice, the air's tris. The air smells sweet, the air smells sick. He never smiles, his mouth merely twists. The breath in my lungs feels clinking and thick. But I know his name, he's called Mr. D. And one of these days he's going to set you free. Human skulls is hanging around his neck. The palm of his hands is clammy and wet.
Yeah,
And
it's pretty
pretty
obvious.
gruesome there when you look at there. But then again, this is not the first time the Stones had ventured into this. You may remember back in on the album Undercover from '83, they had a song called "Too Much Blood," and the video for that had to be censored a couple of times. I don't know if it was censored, but it was pretty not shown a lot of times. It had to be shown late at night because it was a whole bunch of blood everywhere, coming from the TV, the girls watching the TV's lips there, from the walls and this and that. I guess the lyrics were kind of gruesome on that song as well.
Yeah, they were kind of good at doing that once in a while.
Yeah, they did. I mean, let's not forget the album Black and Blue. One of their promotions for that record there featured a tied up woman tied up. It's kind of like a BDMS type of pose there. She had black and blue marks all over her, and her legs were spread wide open there.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that album in a minute.
Yeah.
Next one they did was It's Only Rock and Roll,
Mm-hmm.
but I like it.
Oh yeah. The title cut for that album is still a favorite, still played on the radio,
Yeah, and then they had another song in there called, well, they did a cover of Ain't Too Proud to Beg.
which I enjoyed, which was pretty come close to the original by the Temptations there.
Yeah,
And the cover of that album kind of like caught flack as well because you remember like it's kind of like the same. A lot of Christian groups up and condemned that album cover, making that the Stones were like prophets, with all the celebration that they are here. Yes, the Stones are here. Let's all celebrate. Kind of like this. I guess it was a take on some sort of Peyton, where in the Stones' place it was Jesus Christ, I guess, in the original. But I guess the person redid the cover and put the Stones in the place of Jesus Christ, and I guess a lot of course, Christian groups and fundamentalists didn't care for that as well, from what I understand.
right.
Hmm.
Uh, Pretty good song on this album that I liked that I don't recall if it was a big hit or a little hit or any kind of hit, was Time Waits for No One.
I remember hearing that. It was
That
a pretty good song there.
It's a really good song. Then they had Dance Little Sister, which actually was a hit.
Oh yeah, I remember that was played a lot of times there. Great song there.
And did another one called Short and Curly's. I wonder what that one's about.
I don't know. Let's short and curly. I'm probably.
I was being sarcastic.
Oh yeah, that's probably what about. Yeah, Frank. One of these days we should probably do a special where we talk about all these songs and figure the stories behind them, what they're about and such, because there's a lot more underneath that we're actually knowing about.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because this is always interesting. This is why I often prefer '70s rock songs to the songs of today, because let's face it, the songs back then had some damn good stories to tell. That's for sure.
Yeah, and they kind of subdued them a little bit. Nowadays, it's all explicit and out there.
I know it's like either it's nursery rhymes, but such and such, blah blah blah, and it's kind of stupid. We're tired of hearing about it. Give us
Yeah.
a break. Now, gosh, here. Now, going back to the. Nah, if we go ahead, we could probably move on. I was looking up the details behind Dancing Mr. D, and I guess as I mentioned, it was first double track they referred to about the devil since Sympathy for the Devil back then on the Beggar's Banquet album there.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah. And it was, according to the story here, the lyrics were somewhat more self-reflective than the devil imagery that he adopted. And the chorus contrasts with the lyrics with backing vocals by the group to its steady rhythm. And it would also, by the way, serve as an introduction to the studio-based sound of the mid-1970s since the classic Exile on Main Street,
Right.
recorded at Dynamic Sound Studios in Kingston, Jamaica. It would continue at Village Recorders in L.A. and Island Recording Studios in London. Billy Preston, who had contributed a few songs for the Stones in the past, would be a heavy collaborator through the next couple of albums, and here performs a clavinet. I think it's called. Nicky Hopkins highlights
Oh, yeah.
with pianos and throughout Rebob, another couple of tracks here. And Mick Taylor performs the electric slide guitar as well as bass guitar, while Charlie Watts does his drumming duty.
Hmm.
Yeah, pretty. But then again, it is a pretty creepy song. We think about it at that period of time there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is way. And keep in mind, anybody who where the view of this song was creepy back then, where they'll take a look at some of the death metal bands that are out there coming out of Sweden and Norway would probably be freaking the hell out no matter what, let alone be pissing their pants.
Yeah, yeah, true.
That's very true. Very, very true.
Well, they followed that album up with Black and Blue, which you just talked about a second ago.
Yep.
And this is a pretty strong album, actually.
Yeah. I
Uh,
remember the song Crazy Mama was one of the track there. And plus this the one called Food or Cry, which was a ballad.
yeah,
I
and
remember.
Melody was a good song. Well, they're all pretty good songs on this album.
Um, and
And
the cover feature, and even though we talked about the promo, the little stand up that came along with the album, there was just basically the cover featured the Stones out there, some photographed outside there, close up and back far away.
yeah,
Yeah,
they had another song there called Hot Stuff that was another
remember
big one.
hearing that as well. Yes,
Hand of Fate and Memory Motel. There was a lot of strong tracks on this album.
very good stuff there, and it kind of leaned it towards the more danceable disco realm that they would later achieve around that time with Miss You, Dance from Emotional Rescue.
Yeah, they followed that album up with Some Girls,
Hmm.
which had its own bit of controversy.
Oh, yeah, the title cut from that album, the song Shattered, which was played constantly how many times on radio at that period. When the whip comes down.
Yeah, and they did a good cover of Just My Imagination.
Yep, pretty good one there. I like that. I remember hearing that. I had that cassette one time, and I was like, "Wow, this is a pretty damn good album." And of course, the title cut there. Some girls just want to get fucked all night, and blah blah blah, and all that kind of stuff there. I guess the Stones haven't been really that nice to women, and someone else throughout some of their
Yeah,
songs.
not
I
re-
guess you would say,
yeah. And
yeah,
then they did Miss You, which was a pretty good song on that album.
yeah, this absolutely would. Probably one of the most well-respected disco songs when you think about it. I remember that song was played around the time at places like Studio 54, if I'm correct.
Yeah, and of course they did Beast of Burden, and you mentioned Shattered.
Oh yeah, Beast of Burden, probably one of the most all-time love ballads of all time, still played to this very day.
Yeah, and again, this was a pretty decent album.
Mm, it is. I guess that was inspired by the New York scene around that time, for what I understand there.
Yeah, they followed that up with Emotional Rescue, which that
My
was
favorite.
their that was their nod to disco, you might say.
Well, not well. Let's see. I want to look up the cover of that album because, for what I understand, which by the way, that album was one of my favorites. I remember seeing all the poster that came along.
Yeah,
Remember, it's had the full. Let me look up here. Let's see the album
yeah, the two big ones on that.
Wiki.
Go ahead.
Okay, about She's So Cold, the title cut.
Yeah,
And Let Me Go, where it was played heavily on the album. Now, it was sort of, let's see here, the history of the album. Now, the album cover, believe it or not, now for those who weren't really under, who really weren't aware about this, I had concept organized art direction was done by, sorry if I'm getting tongue tied here, Peter Corriston with what it was is called thermographic photos taken by British-born Paris-based artist Roy Adzak using a thermal camera, a device
yeah,
which measures heat emissions. The original release came with a wrapped in a huge color poster featuring more thermal shots of the band and the album itself wrapped in a plastic bag. The original music video for the title cut also utilized the same kind of shots of the band performing. Short time later, a second video for the title cut was shot. featuring the band itself, as their normal self there, directed by David Mallet, as well for the who did the also did the second single "She's So Cold." It came out in June in 1980, and it was the disco-infused title cut was a lead single from it. It
Yeah.
was a massive smash. It went to number three in the Billboard Top 100, and the album gave the Stones their first number one UK album since Goat's Head Soup, who we mentioned earlier. It
Hmm.
was spent 7 weeks on top of the U.S. charts, and the follow-up single, "She's So Cold," was a worldwide hit, while Dance Part 1 reached the number 9 on the dance charts that same year. A lot of great songs on that album. I used to play that a lot, especially "She's So Cold" as well as "Let Me Go."
Yeah. Yeah. They followed that up with Tattoo You, which was not a bad album either.
Great album as well. And
Has Start Me Up in there, which was they ended up
Hang Fire, still played on this radio. Start Me Up, that is.
yeah they
Hang
ended up
Fire.
letting Windows use that as an opening for Windows. Start Me
Yep.
Up.
By the
And
way, I guess that album, I guess you could say, had a lot of collage of the unreleased tracks. Some tracks were actually recorded back in 1977 and didn't make it onto that album until that particular year. And this is the album would later be a part of their first tour in, what was it, 1978, I guess? And by
yeah,
this time, the Stones were playing huge stadiums. I remember there was a whole bunch of hype between when the Stones were coming to the Pontiac Silverdome back in Auburn Hills, Michigan there. And it was like a massively big. There were like a big back page photos of the Stones in performance here and there. It was like massively big because everybody was humping up. The Stones are back. They're playing these stadiums, and I don't know if this was ever done before with the last tour, but the last tour they did that time, all the major acts, whether it's Eddie Money, The Clash, this rock, the Jay Giles Band, George Thorogood, and the Destroyers, they became opening acts for the Rolling Stones,
yeah,
which is pretty odd, because these were, like I said, these were major arena acts in their own selves. I remember we all know the story of Prince opening up for the Stones and getting booed about called faggot, queer by the Stones crowd.
yeah,
That
yeah,
was, and of course later on Prince become a big major headliner himself. He would make it big a couple years later after that. Wouldn't you know it?
yeah. Another song that album that's pretty decent was "Waiting on a Friend."
Oh yeah, that's the old great song there. I remember the video for that being played constantly on the old MTV. It's like Jagger, waiting for his friend Keith to walk down the street. I guess it was filmed in New York City. They go to a bar, have a few drinks while Jagger's mouthing out the lyrics, lip syncing, I guess, and they go headed to the band spot, start pretending to play and all that stuff here.
Yeah, and then of course there was Little TNA. I wonder what that's about.
Oh, we all know that. We know that like the back of our hands, believe it or not. And of course, a couple years later, we would get Undercover,
Right.
the title cut, Undercover of the Night. The video for that song was played a lot on MTV, and of course, it had to have a viewer discretion because it have the main character, a guy who Jagger portrayed, when a guy would later die, get shot and die in the end. I guess it was sort of coup takeover and a kidnapping plot set in some foreign country. I guess it's South America, I think it was.
Yeah.
And that's the album that also featured that song "Too Much Blood," which I talked about, and the video along with it earlier on.
Right. Yeah. And this song for them, this album for them didn't do as well as some of their other ones. Didn't have as many massive hits off of it like some of their others did.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, but he also I should also mention the song "She Was Hot" and or she is or what's it called? She was hot.
Or She's
What's
So
it called?
Hot.
She's so hot. Probably look that up there. The video for that was kind of funny when you look at it. This woman appears out of nowhere, and all the thermostats go up there, and Stone Boys are freaking out. They see her. It's like Charlie Watts, he sees her bending over. It's like, wow. It's kind of like those funny moments there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, later on, Stones would take a break for a while there. I guess their next album would not come out until about 1986 with Dirty Work.
Yeah, and that one, I don't think did all that well. There's not that many hits on this one either.
Other than the Harlem Shuffle. And keep in mind, at this time period, the boys had just signed with then CBS Records. All their catalog would finally be released that was on Rolling Stones Records / Atlantic Records would finally be re-released on Columbia Records, CBS,
Right.
including Some Girls, Emotional Rescue, Goat's Head Soup, all those albums there would finally be reissued there. And of course, a couple years later, around this time, Mick Jagger earlier on had released his first solo record titled "She's the Boss." It was kind of the material on that would be a kind of like a somewhat a departure from the Stones when you think about it. There, he released another solo record called "The Primitive Cool," and around this time, Mick and Keith were not exactly getting along at this point. I guess Keith was very loyal to the Stones. It's a genre of them. He wanted to keep the Stones going, and I guess at that period of time, Jagger wanted to break away from that for a while there.
Yeah, a lot of groups seem to go through that where members of the group just start clashing a little bit.
Yeah,
It just seems that I guess you know people get too close. I don't know. And virtually every group went through this stuff off and on.
yeah. Fleetwood Mac, Pink Floyd,
The Kinks.
the Kinks, a lot of those bands went through that a lot of times. So while Mick Jagger was out doing his solo thing, Keith Richards decided to do his solo record. He put out the album "Talk Is Cheap," in which he would put together his group, do a couple of shows together, and they would eventually reunite, patch things up, and start working the album "Steel Wheels,"
Yeah,
which came out in 1989.
and that one's got Mixed Emotions on it, which was a big song for them,
Yep,
and A Rock in a Hard Place.
yep. And of course, the tour that would later follow after that would feature another version of the Rolling Stones, a younger version, I guess you could say, Guns N' Roses. And that's
Yeah,
where one of the performances, was when Axl Rose would gave that announcement on stage. He does if the boys in GNR doesn't clean their shit up, he would depart. He would leave because he doesn't want anybody dancing with Mr. Brownstone. I guess Axl was not all approval of what was going on backstage between the other members, including Slash, Steven Adler, and Duff McKagan.
well, that was another case of a group having members didn't get along. Although in most cases it was Axel not getting along with anybody.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, of course. Then Axl at that time was a massive prima donna, and he
Yeah,
would later carry on that on years later on. With the riots in both St. Louis, Missouri, and in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Some of his shenanigans would get the group in trouble many times before. When you look at it,
yeah.
and of course, and what album came after this? I think it was Voodoo Lounge. I think it was back in 1984. I think it was,
Yeah,
and
and
this
that
was.
had "Love Is Strong" was the big song in there.
Yep, great song there. And an interesting video there when you really look at it. It's kind of comical because the idea that the director had for this was since they're considered the world's greatest rock and roll band, let's have them make them the greatest rock and roll band. How many feet tall, man? Over some city there, a bunch of female models as well, prancing around the city there. And this was the first album to introduce, excuse me, to introduce the Stones as a four-piece. Bill Wyman had just announced his retirement from the group, and now they have to rely on studio session men to play bass for them in the studio and on tour.
Yeah. And then they're going to have a stretch where they have a long gap in their albums.
Yep.
They're going to do Bridges to Babylon first,
Yep.
which that one had. I'm looking at the track list now. Okay, none of these are jumping out at me, but I know I've heard them.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Flip the Switch, maybe.
I'm thinking, yeah. I don't recall if I ever heard that on the radio at that time.
This was about the time when they're not getting played as much as they used to.
Um,
And they followed that up with A Bigger Bang, which was almost 10 years later.
yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that record record at the at an old Kmart when I was living in Richmond, Michigan. I don't know if any songs from that album was ever played on the radio.
I'm looking at the list now, and well, here's one that might appeal to you, Back of My Hand.
Mm. Yeah.
I don't know what it sounds like off the top of my head,
You
because
know,
I don't recognize any of these songs.
I know it's like one of those albums that come out. You see one almost every time you walk into the store, but it's never bought. It just sits there. And like I said, I don't think any tracks on that album ever got played on the radio or introduced on MTV.
Yeah.
Of course, at that time, MTV was turning into crud with all the reality shows that they were pushing down our throats.
Yeah, and
And that I believe that album came out, was it 2005? I think it was.
right. And the next album was 11 to 12 years later, Blue and Lonesome.
Mm.
And I'm looking at the track list here. There's not a single song on here that was written by Jagger Richards.
I think that may have been a covers album, if I'm correct.
It pretty much is, and mostly old blues stuff.
Mm. I guess you could call that their homage to the blues album there.
Yeah, and the funny
But
thing
remember,
is, I'm looking at it, and these are pretty obscure songs. I Can't Quit You Babies on this album, which is
oh yeah, of course we know Led Zeppelin would later do the old Willie Dixon song there.
right. Or they did it well before this.
Yeah. So I guess you could call that their blues homage release. They're a tribute to the blues artists that they enjoyed listening to as kids, I guess you could say, because they did a lot of blues songs on some of their albums. They're like Down in the Hole, which is on Motion Rescue. They had an live album called Love You Live, which they did a song called Manish Boy, which was originally done by Muddy Waters, if I'm correct.
Yeah, they did a lot of covers like that on their early albums too.
Yeah, it's true, yeah.
But yeah, this one, it took them 12 years to put this one together, but they didn't write any new material.
Yeah. And I guess that would be their last. And what year did that album came out?
2017, 16.
27. 27. And that was their last release, I guess, for a long while. Now, there were a lot of rumors that the Stones were going to tour this year or tour that year. Of course, this year, that was probably shot down because of the pandemic that went around there.
Yeah.
But who knows, what's going to happen. Maybe they'll tour. They don't really tour as much as they used to. Of course, they haven't done any albums there as much as they used to as well. Also, keep in mind, I forgot to mention, they signed a new deal with Virgin Records there in '94 That's when they released the Voodoo Lounge at that time, and that's when Virgin decided to re-release all those Stones album in special editions there, like the Motional Rescue album that got released as well. They decided to include a mini poster of the original poster that included onto the CD there. It would cover the out that would later cover the entire album cover there. Decided to do it with the CD reissue, as well as the Sticky Fingers album. I guess they decided to include the a miniature zipper on that, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And they actually released quite a few live albums.
no, they got the most live albums in any group that we know. The last album, I guess, was it. What was the last live album they put it out there? Let's see. The last one I remember was a record called Flashpoint, which came out in 1991, and they had one studio track which took aim at the first Gulf War, if I'm correct.
Well, actually, Flashpoint came out in '91,
Hmm.
and they released several albums after that that were lives.
Oh yeah,
Stripped, Rock and Roll Circus, No Security, Live Licks, and Shine a Light.
Shine a Light. Now, Shine a Light was a different one because that was, I believe, filmed in some theater, and it featured a couple appearances from artists like Christina Aguilera and a couple others. I remember seeing one of the footage of that's doing the song. I guess was what was that song? "Come with Me." I guess it was. She appeared out and did that song with them.
Yeah,
Yeah, got to look that up again because that's most interesting. Young and old mixing together on one stage, I guess you could say.
yeah. And of course, they released some of the compilation albums, which generally picked up songs that weren't on any of the other albums.
Yeah.
In fact, on I forget which one it was, More Hot Rocks,
Hmm.
they had a whole side of some of the early covers they did. What to Do, Money, Come On, Fortune Teller, Poison Ivy, Bye Bye Johnny, I Can't Be Satisfied, and Long, Long While.
And I guess they also had an album called Metamorphosis, which I guess is how some of the demos. If I'm correct, it was a album of demos for Rich of Stone's originals.
Yeah,
What I understand, yeah. I guess that came about accidentally. I guess, the London Records found out that the Stones owed that one more album, and so they decided, you know what? Instead of recording a new album of studio material, let's give them a bunch of demos of our original songs there and put it out as that.
yeah. They had a couple other songs on this album that were never on other albums.
Yes.
Dandelion, which was a song I really liked.
Yeah, I remember hearing that as well.
Sitting on a Fence, Have You Seen Your Mother Baby Standing in the Shadow?
I love that song there. That was a cool one there.
Uh, we Love You,
Which, by the way, I think I mentioned this before, featured John and Paul from the Beatles on backup vocals.
yeah. But the Stones were, well, at that time, for some reason, uh, record companies, a lot of times, some of the singles they didn't put on albums unless it was later on a greatest hits album or a compilation of some sort. They didn't
That's
put them
true.
on albums. I don't know why. I don't know what the rationale was,
I
but
don't know either, but
they
but
did that a
now
lot in the '60s.
yeah, in the 70s and 80s as well. And of course, and they did the same thing with Nazareth. The album Hair of the Dog, the UK version didn't have Love Hurts on it.
Huh.
And now with A&M, Nazareth's US label decided, let's take off the Randy Newman cover of Guilty and let's put Love Hurts in its place there.
Yeah,
And all the reissues of that album would feature both Guilty and Love Hurts, of course, with a bunch of other B-side tracks along with it as well. I remember getting that as a birthday present from my girlfriend at that time, back in 2000.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was, like I said, it's a common practice for some reason. I don't know why. So if
yeah,
you went looking for all the material, you had to pick up some of those albums just to get all the material.
I know. And oh, here's one more nod to that practice there. The final cut by Pink Floyd, the reissue that came out in the 2000s there would include the song "When the Tigers Broke Free," which was
Right.
originally featured in the Wall movie, but never made it on any album. It was just released as a single first and foremost. They decided to put that album, actually put that track on the final version of the final cut release there.
Yeah, and Final Cut to me was possibly in my opinion, the worst Pink Floyd album.
Depressing. I could, I have to agree because there was nothing but it was a grim look at that world, outside world there, and it was just absolutely depressing. I mean, even David Gilmour even mentioned that was not one of his favorite Pink Floyd records. It was meant to be a Roger Waters solo record, but it ended up being a Pink Floyd record.
It was
Maybe it should have.
basically his way of saying goodbye.
Yeah, it was goodbye to Pink Floyd,
Right.
because it would be, of course, years later, it would be his last album with the Floyd in all general, because a couple years later he would announce he would finally leave the group,
Yeah.
and it's just so depressing altogether. It's not something you want to listen to on your way to a hot date or a good club night. That's for sure.
No.
But back to the Stones, where do we see the Stones now? And I know they're still together. They're still doing well. They're still alive, with the exception, of course, Brian Jones, and they're all
Yeah.
still living. And what do you think about this? All the remarks about Keith Richards, outliving everybody.
Yeah, that's really bizarre.
It's either
He's
bizarre,
one of those guys that you look at and you think, well, he's really dead, but nobody told him. So,
And I guess the best one they could come up with, is somebody photoshopped all these, face masks across the Stone's face, of course, except for Keith, because he's not gonna die.
yeah. Well, it's funny because Johnny Depp, when he did Pirates of the Caribbean, said he based the character on
On
Keith
Keith
Richards.
Richards, exactly. And wouldn't you know, Keith Richards would end up playing Jack Sparrow's father in one of the I guess one of the recent Pirates of the Caribbean movies.
Yeah, I forget which one. They all blend together for me.
I know, I got so many, it's hard to tell, But it's kind of funny, It's no surprise, no
Yeah.
surprise, because a lot of ways, as you said, he based his character on Keith Richards altogether.
Yeah. So it's appropriate that he should play his father.
Exactly. And when you look, and as I mentioned, you look at all the when somebody famous dies, when somebody, like, whether it's a singer or an actor. I remember one meme had Keith Richards reading a newspaper with a big smile on his face, and the meme said across, "Hey Mick, guess who I outlived this week?"
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Of course, I'm beginning to wonder. There was this joke. Somebody said it'll be after the nuclear war. There'll always be two things: Bugs and Keith Richards.
That's probably true.
Yeah, but then again, they said the same thing about Ozzy Osbourne and Betty White. She's about 90 years old, I guess.
I think she's reached 100.
Holy shit! How the hell does she
I
do it?
think. I don't know that for sure, but
Probably close to 200. I mean, 100 basically.
yeah.
Huh. That is going to be a trip, man. So what do you? So let's go on all in all. Stones, of course, are unable to tour because of the
Yeah.
pandemic. Of course, every other band's unable to tour. The only one that was able to do a show so far was Brad Paisley, and they did what they call a drive-in concert where people sat and watched the show from their automobiles, far apart, of course.
Right.
It's like, but for a band like the Stones, for many years, had seen crowds played all clunched together, like or festivals. This is going to be like a pretty awkward thing to see there.
I'm pretty sure they won't tour again, but I could be wrong.
Who knows? When this pandemic is done, maybe we'll see them along with every other band going on tour. That's a celebration. Yeah, we could tour again.
Yeah, and they're all going to tour at once, and nobody can afford tickets, so the shows aren't. There won't be many sold out shows.
That's true there because a lot of people are still out of work because of the pandemic. There are businesses out there, but still they're probably not earning as much, because of the social distance, the how many people could be inside the place here.
Right, right.
Yeah. Gosh. So I guess that concludes our look at the Stones. Are still together, the world's greatest rock and roll band. Well, I guess we got enough time to talk about other things if you wish.
Well,
And
yeah,
by the way, anybody listening out there who wants to call in on the show, whether it's the Super Ugly Show or I guess who are on right now as we're talking, Joe Cronin. I think I should probably check see if we can let's see if we could add somebody to the call. If not, no big deal there.
well, I don't know who you got out there.
Let's see. I'm checking right now. So far, the only one that's out there is Devious Dave Rose.
Yeah, one other album I was going to mention real quick by the Stones is called The Singles, which is a
Mhm.
4 disc set, which has got
Wow.
about 80 songs on it, which is basically their singles and some B-sides.
Yep.
And if you're going to get an album that represents the Stones, that's probably going to be the one you want to get.
Interesting there. Very interesting. I'm going to message Dave Rose see if he wants to come on our program.
Well, is he in your chat?
Well, he's not in the chat, no, but he's on the online on Skype right now.
Well, message him first before you bring him on.
That's what I'm doing right now. Join in me and Ark.
Yeah, this
Here.
particular album, you could probably pick up a lot of songs that you wouldn't get except on this one.
Yeah, a lot of B-sides. There was, yeah, another also notable person who I've been known for by their B-sides, of course, is Prince.
Right.
Remember when there was the hits compilation that came out. There were copies that featured the 2 discs of all his greatest hits, as well as a separate disc with all the B-sides that came along with it.
Yeah.
All right, I messaged Dave Rose to see if he wants to come on the show there and hang for a bit there. And we'll wait and see in a response. So I know, let's see about. So is everything going okay with you, man? Because was it Friday your birthday? I understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, happy birthday. I mean, I think I messaged that on Skype there. How are you? 70?
Hit 70, yeah.
Congratulations up there. You're getting up there, man.
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, that's
I
true.
think it must have been one hell of a party.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Glad to hear that.
Right. I didn't really do anything but other than, take care of business.
All right.
Um, I guess, what did we decide to do tomorrow on the TV show?
Well, I'm thinking about possibly we could probably look at some of the other programs that Bill Cosby had. I mentioned this before because there was I Spy, there was the Bill Cosby Show from 1969 to 1971.
Yeah,
We also take a look at the Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, the cartoon that he did for Filmation there.
yeah,
We can also take a look at, of course, the Cosby Show and the later Cosby, which ran in the 1990s there.
yeah. It's really kind of a shame about his whole thing because he was a he was a good entertainer, but
He was.
he got wrapped up in the other thing and pretty much ruined his legacy.
I know. Now, when you look at it, the legacy, I mean, the amount of work this man did, the college, the college speeches he did, the urging to everybody to further their educations,
Yeah,
the amount of movies he did, like Uptown Saturday Night and its sequel, Let's Do It Again. The legacy he did in the 1980s with the Cosby Show,
right.
all that work
And
has now been tarnished.
a lot of the albums, which
Yeah,
the
I had a lot of those albums. Like I started out as a child, Wonderfulness, 200 Miles, the sports album, for adults only, which had no cussing on it, by the way. I had a lot of those records. I used to enjoy listening
yeah,
to them.
yeah,
Yeah, and himself, the movie he did, we saw on cable back in 82, 83, that was a pretty damn one. That was only featured one curse word. It was the word asshole.
yeah.
That was about it.
He was big on entertaining without and make it
Cussing.
yeah. And they did Why Is There Air?
Yeah, YOC era. I remember that. Revenge. Revenge. That was the first record I ever heard from him. I used to listen to that one. And a lot of some of that material and some of the characters he talked about will later be featured in the Fat Albert cartoon series later on, like Old Weird Harold,
Yeah,
Mushmouth, and of course Fat Albert himself.
right. But
Definitely we got to save all this on for tomorrow night. That's for sure, man.
and I think we decided to start skipping Thursdays because it's pretty packed to get done before uh, the other thing with
Minnesota Vikings fan
right.
and his show Real Swag TV. Yeah.
So we'll skip Thursday, and then Friday we generally did movies, but that might we might make that the second music night and just skip movies because we're having a hard time coming up ones that were easy to discuss.
Well, I know. There was a couple mentions we wanted to talk about. That the problem is you never saw Heaven's Gate, and neither did I. And I never. I'm still trying to find that movie Manitou that you recommended it.
Yeah,
But it's all about you. What I'm thinking of seeing on the YouTube, however, is just your trailers, bits and pieces from the movie here and there. And so all we could really do is look it up on the Wikipedia and read it from there. And the
yeah,
same thing with Heaven's Gate. And man, and I found a lot of story about that. This was probably the most hated movie whatsoever.
yeah, yeah. But
Man,
we can go ahead and well, we can go ahead and do movies. But I'm thinking maybe instead of doing a recap and a preview on Mondays,
yeah,
do the second.
movie,
Well, either
movie
that or
show.
we'll do the movies then.
All right,
And so we can do the movies, then Tuesday music, Wednesday TV, and then Friday
more music.
more music. Yeah,
Sounds like a good idea there. That's a good idea. I like that. Yeah.
and that way we don't get rushed and hurried on Thursday because
Cool.
to do 5 o'clock. I mean, I'm coming out of dialysis and I'm
Ah,
got less than an hour before we start, and it just
that's
really
that's
puts me in
true
a
there.
rush, and then we get in
That's
a
true.
rush to get done.
Yeah, a
So we'll
lot of
just skip
cause it kind of
Thursday.
puts me in a rush as well because a lot of times I'm doing a lot of stuff around the house and
Right.
outside of the house, and I have to hurry up and get things done so we could get it home in our time to get home on
And
Thursdays
I
here
don't
and
know if
there.
you've ever heard from JB about doing that thing with him.
That's right. I think you should probably message him. You know what? I should message
And
him
then Joe
right
talked
now.
about me and him doing something, me and you doing something with him or for
I,
him, which I have no problem with doing that.
you know,
because we
Okay.
record it, send it to him, and he'll put it up on his Patreon. Give him a little more content. And like I said, I got no problem doing something with JB either.
Yeah.
It's
It
just
would be
hard
like
for all of us to get together.
I know it's like I know it is. I'm gonna message him on Skype right now, JB. When wondering when. Oops, I spelled that wrong. Dang, come. Other than that, I had to really clean up my computer there. I had a lot of stuff that was on my screen that I had to remove. Place back in my downloads files here. Had to clean out a lot of stuff there because there was a lot of back. I was recording a lot of stuff to convert to audio, like certain albums here and there that I'm unable to buy since there's hardly any record stores in this area, let alone hardly any record stores in general now.
Right.
All the ones I remember, like Harmony House and Sam Jams back in Michigan, are El Paso now. So I've been able to get a lot of stuff recorded on my OBS and convert to audio here and put on my MP3 here. And see what you think of this. Have you ever had this problem with your phone? You have Google Play Music. Yeah, you're trying, and now it says Google Play Music is no longer available, and it has to transfer to YouTube Music.
Hmm.
Now, I tried doing that. I don't know what the deal is. None of the stuff on my playlist, list one to list two, are popping up on my list. There are songs
Yeah.
or albums and such, and I don't know if I have to pay YouTube a certain amount of money each month to have those tracks show up there or whatever it was, but I'm not
It's
digging it one
probably the
bit.
case. Yeah, that would be my guess. Um, I hadn't really got anything on my phone other than little bits that I use for ringtones.
Oh yeah, shit, man. I still have some of my old alarm clock sounds when I used to wake up to get to my old job there at the times. And
Yeah.
if I still get hired at this particular Walmart, I'll definitely start loading up some new ones there because it's been a long time since I used one. Dude, I almost missed out on that interview because what it was, I forgot to set what date, what morning.
Oh,
Yeah, because thank goodness I woke up about 45 minutes before for that interview. It's like, holy shit, wow. I still realized what was wrong, man. I just hurry up there and borrowed the car and just took off and made it back there. Thank goodness.
well, that's good. Yeah.
Oh God, that would be scary on my part. I would hate to because this is probably the first time I had a job interview in how long there.
Well, one of the ringtones, alarm sounds I use is the beginning of time. All those clocks.
Oh yeah, remember the
I
Pink
grabbed
Floyd
that.
song.
Yeah, I grabbed that and made that an alarm tone.
Nice. I know I was one of my alarm clock sounds would be the first track from Seduce's Too Much Ain't Enough album, song called Anytime or Place.
Uh,
Mm. Definitely group got check out sometime. Motor City Power Trio, big in the 80s.
well, as we roll along, I know I'm going to mention some people you haven't heard that you need to find, or
Check.
I could be surprised. You may know them,
Yeah,
but as we go along, of course.
absolutely.
But first we do the Kinks, then we do the Who. Then I
Hmm.
talked to you about doing each year the album releases and the single releases starting in 1960. And I'm
Yes.
wondering if whether or not that's something we should do for Joe if we get something going with Joe.
Tell you what, we just probably. I don't know what Joe's doing. I know he'll probably do a throwdown tonight. I'm imagining. Possibly we could. You and I could probably call in on Discord there and discuss that possibility, or get a hold of him through Twitter. And DM him about that idea there, that concept.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking. Well, I don't really like to stay up that late because it starts at what 10 o'clock my time or 9 o'clock my time or something like that. I don't recall exactly.
somewhere
and
around that time. Same here.
it makes it kind of rough for me.
Ah,
But I'm hoping if you get that job that it doesn't interfere with this. But if it does, we'll figure something else out.
definitely.
We'll record them on your days off and dump them or something. We'll figure it out. The only tie up
Okay,
I've got is dialysis Tuesdays, Thursdays, and
that's
Saturdays.
true.
I really don't have any other tie ups other than that, unless I got something that starts up and I got to deal with it.
Right, that's true.
But other than that, I don't have anything going on.
All right.
But
Okay,
I'm,
just go ahead.
oh, you go ahead because you're going to tell me something.
Yeah, I just said I just messaged JB not too long ago. Said he wouldn't want to still do that JB's Cafe segment there.
Yeah, yeah, I'm kind of interested in that because
I know.
although I don't know a ton about metal, but I do know a lot of the early stuff.
Well, we could probably just about music or so, a couple of things in general there.
Well, I liked
I
the
know Pop.
topic he was talking about. It sounded
Yeah,
like something that'd be interesting.
yeah. I know he's going to be. Are you going to be listening to JB Sports Radio on tomorrow afternoon?
Yeah, I might try to do that.
You could probably call in, or I can call in. We could probably talk on the postie or afterwards. Find out when we'll be able to do this here.
Yeah,
It could probably be later that afternoon, or the next day, or later that evening. Who knows?
right.
Because I know one time he called. One time I was hoping like to do something like that there a while back. I remember one time at the last place he called me out of the blue. It was 7 in the morning. Hey, you're on JB's Cafe there, and I was still sleepy. I'm just it take a while for me to wake up, and he just finally hung up there, and I said, okay, might as well we'll go back to sleep.
Yeah, I won't be able to do anything that early.
I know that's true. It's like it takes a long while for me to wake up.
Yeah,
All right, there. So, I guess that'll be it for today.
yeah, I
So,
think so.
yeah. So tomorrow night we'll be taking a look at the television career of Bill Cosby, all the various programs that he had done up till about now, and of course we'll be taking a look on Friday at the Kinks.
Right.
Definitely. It would have been take a look at their career there, see about where they're going, if they're still together or not.
Yeah, and who knows?
And of course, starting this Monday, Movie Mondays will be
Yeah,
the. That's right. I like that title right there. Movies on Monday. I guess probably be discussing whichever movie comes to mind there.
yeah, yeah. All I had to do is do a little looking, and I can probably figure some out.
All right. Yeah, definitely. I still said I know we could probably talk about the movie. I say we talk about the movies that we mentioned there.
Yeah,
Even though I say let's do that, man. Definitely.
yeah, because
Because
those
we're
are
so because
interesting.
we're very interesting. We definitely got to discuss that.
And of course,
And
we
you
have
know,
Battlefield Earth.
yeah. Oh gosh, we got to
We've
talk
seen
about.
that one.
Yeah, I've so you have.
Yeah,
I only watched a little bit to bits of it on at the City Club television back in Detroit. There, it was Leela City Club was a well-known night spot that I hung out for many years, for a couple decades there. It was like my second home, and I'm looking at this like trying to listen in because they had the volume somewhat low there. It's like really
well, I told
this
you my story about seeing that movie.
yeah, I know, yeah. I still cannot imagine. It's hard to imagine this monstrous looking, cyber tech looking Rob Zombie wannabe with a Vinnie Barbarino voice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's just a that's an incredibly
Oh
crazy
God.
movie.
Oh gosh.
But yeah,
Yeah.
we need to discuss that one a little bit
That was
because it was
kind
just
of
it was just full of things that you're sitting there going, huh?
a and believe me, there are a lot of movies out there. Another one I want to discuss is Battle Beyond the Stars, which was supposed to have been this which started Richard Thomas from the Waltons and
Yeah, I
John
think I've seen
Saxon.
that.
I've seen that on cable myself. That was
Yeah,
cheesy. I mean, the spaceship that this guy was flying in, I swear, you'll take a look at this thing. It looked like a moose's head with a couple boobs hanging out.
yeah, it's not what you'd call good effects.
Jeez, and it almost looked kind of pink if I was correct, if I remember.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, let's just make that the plan for the rest of the week and starting next week and go from there.
All right, definitely, we'll definitely do that. Okay, okay, so I guess this concludes our episode 13 of our music memory series. Our second look at the Rolling Stones. Episode 14 will be on this Friday here. We're going to take a look at the Kinks and their long life career, see what they're doing right now. Because I don't know if the Kinks have released that album since God knows how long. I think it was in '89, if I remember.
I'm not sure exactly when the last album they released was.
Last time I heard of it was this record called UK Jive, but that was in 1989.
Huh.
Yeah. And of course, Ray Davies has been doing stuff on his own as of late. His brother Dave, the other co-guitarist, he had a stroke. I forgot to look up what year it was that he had this. And so they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, no, without a doubt there.
Oh yeah.
So, and of course, tomorrow, as we mentioned, we're going to take a look at the programs of Bill Cosby, television-wise, of course. And Monday, we'll do our movie Mondays with a look at whichever comes to mind, I guess. We'll come up with something probably later on this week there.
Yeah.
All right, there.
Actually, the last album that the Kinks did, 'cause I just looked it up, was Phobia in 1993.
Oh, wow. 93. Wow. That's I forgot that album actually came out. I could just one of those records is just come you just see it one time and you forget about it the next day. I don't know why.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think any songs from that record ever got played on the radio, let alone played on the old MTV.
We'll have to look and see on that one because that's
Oh,
not one I'm familiar with.
all right, so definitely we'll take a look at that this coming Friday. All right, then. I guess that's it for this evening here, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I have so once again, this for Arknolia and myself. This is Music Memories, episode 13. Arknolia and the Doctor. We look forward to seeing you and hearing from you tomorrow as we look at the TV programs of Bill Cosby. All right, on our TV Memory series there. For myself and Arknolia, you cats have a good one.
Alrighty.
All right, bye bye. And that was it. There we go.
Yeah.